Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for this very interesting conversation around partnerships and loyalty. I have a very special guest
guys.
joining
Appreciate it.
for this conversation, Antonio.
Nice to meet you all.
Antonio is a global loyalty and digital transformation expert. Currently, he's spearheading the efforts around loyalty strategy and partnerships for DARNA program, the group loyalty program of Aldar. Prior to that, he was associated with the Share program, where again he was running the loyalty strategy and partnerships. Antonio has also spent a considerable amount of time in Australia, where he was running the Qantas Loyalty program, he was the one who led the project of the digital transformation project of Qantas, where the whole loyalty program revamp happened, and they launched a super application integrating Qantas Money and the other fintech products as well. As you may notice, his career spans across so many different verticals. So, we were very excited when we were actually finalizing the guest for this conversation, and we couldn't find anyone, with Antonio. Thank you so much for coming here, Antonio, and spending time with us today.
Thanks for the intro, Sid. Good to see you.
Great. I'll start off with, I think, the very basic question. Why partnerships and loyalty?
All right. So I think if we look at successful loyalty programs, partnership is a key ingredient. Obviously, we need to have a very strong proposition for the customer. I think you also notice that you need to be a bit of a marketing powerhouse. The other third fundamental ingredient is partnerships. To give you a bit of an example, if I'm looking at Qantas, that's what I'll base most of my experience on. 70% of the EBIT was generated by partners. Yeah. So that gives you a sense of the impact. It also helps to, in the partnerships, they also help with the subsidizing and better tackling the cost of loyalty for the organization. So lastly, I would say good partnership can also obviously protect you against competitors and give you an edge. So it's a fundamental ingredient of any loyalty program for what I've seen.
Right. But do you think partnerships is for everyone, or is it more impactful in a certain program or a certain vertical and not so effective in certain verticals?
I guess it depends on what we're looking at. I think it does really, I would say, in terms of the importance of the partners, it's, I would tend to think that it's most likely for any type of loyalty program, it's something that you want to look at, because quite often what a partner can bring is typically complementary to what the loyalty program can bring. It could be access to customers you might not be able to reach. It could just give additional value to your existing members, new capabilities. So it's a fundamental ingredient. So I think it's relatively applicable. I guess the difference, it could be based on the maturity, the size of the loyalty program. You might have to look for different type of partners or partnership models. But overall, it's a key ingredient, in my opinion.
Okay. You yourself have, kind of launched so many, partnerships and so many programs, across your career span. For any brand who's, wanting to do or introduce partnerships as a value proposition for their program, how do you go about, or what would you advise them? How should they go about, enabling that as a value proposition for them?
So you mean to add new partnerships? That's what
start ground up.
To start a loyalty program ground up and leverage it, right?
So imagine, brands doing loyalty programs, which is fairly around, points, exchange of points, but now they want to plug in partnerships also as part of the value proposition. Okay.
So first of all, I would say you need to have a core loyalty proposition that attracts your customer base. It's unlikely that a partner can necessarily solve that. But what you can do is build on top of it, as I said. So what's important is when selecting, from my experience, when selecting a partner, is to do a fair bit of due diligence. And that due diligence spans the partner, the market where they play in, understanding the competitive positioning, understanding even the economics of their business. After the type of technical capabilities, customer experience, because if you're looking at putting together a successful partnerships, it's a little bit, there are quite a lot of similarity, for example, with startups. You really need to de-risk that partnership. And so it goes way beyond the commercial agreement that's actually part of that. But the full value chain needs to, for a successful partnership, needs to be, from my experience, very assessed in detail and really clearly understands between the two organizations across the value chain, how can we play to each other's strength to really give something special to our customers and members. And I think that sets a good foundation. On top of that, again, it's like a startup world. Once you launch, that's where everything begins. So setting up a solid way to collaborate, a solid way to operate, it's as important because once you go live, that's when you get in market learnings. Maybe I'll give you a quick example. If I'm thinking about what we did at Qantas, we did a partnership with Citibank and MasterCard. At the time, we launched our own branded proposition, Qantas Money, and there were a lot of learnings beyond that initial contract, from the way the two organizations that were working together, different ethos. You know, we had a value proposition around financial well-being. The bank wanted to attract revolvers, so we were sitting quite a different part of the spectrums. We look at every single aspect, and we used to meet something that probably we did quite well at the time compared to other places that I've seen, is we went beyond the traditional monthly meeting where we just look at how the partnership is performing. We actually mapped out the entire customer journey, and we would work as a team together and unlocking more value. And it was a cross-functional approach. So you would get your digital team, your operations team, your marketing and commercial, looking step by step. How is the awareness going? Is it a marketing issue? Is it a proposition issue? And then go step by step and work it out together. It was a tough job, but we managed to achieve results. For example, we improved approvals by 40%. We were beating even the Citibank journey, the card approval journey. So that I think it's a model that I haven't really replicated yet here. But if you're very serious and if you want to do something big, that seems to work quite well. So again, it's a bit, as I said, the startup. Once you launch, then it's about what you do on an ongoing basis.
Great. No, so you brought up an interesting point saying, the internal readiness as well is as important as, identifying who the right partner is. But if you can spend some more time on, explaining how do you basically come up with, what is the right assortment of partners and what is the right assortment of, offerings that you should be embedding.
So the way that I've been used to work with has been to go through the fundamentals, understand your customers, understand what matters to them the most. Again, if you bring in a partner, does that solve a problem or does tackle a key need of your customer? So typically take a customer first approach. And then it's about shortlisting, go through the process, understanding out of those partners which ones you believe that they have more alignment to your success measures, but also even on the company ethos. So even what drives the two organizations. So that process, it's very important. Test does your brand, as if I give you the example, we wanted to test, for example, when we launched Qantas Insurance, we wanted to test as a brand, can we even play there? And our members told us that we could, but we also had some failure. So it wasn't just rosy. We launched health, car, home insurance. We learned in market as an airline. Hindsight is great, but at the time we didn't have it. For example, we also launched life insurance. That didn't quite work well. So it's about validate the right to play. And then, as I said before, go through a thorough due diligence because anywhere in that value chain can break. If, for example, the operations are not there, and there is a different expectations between what good customer service is between the two partners, that can be an issue. So when we launch credit cards partnership there was a completely different journey that the two organizations that were expecting. So again, a lot of learnings that in future iterations they help us to put together kind of a playbook on how to tackle any partnerships. And it was quite, as I said, quite thorough, and that due diligence was applied across every part of the value chain.
Right. So I think you're elaborating on the point saying that, identify the persona first, identifying what is the segment and the persona that you are targeting, and basically start from there on finding what is the right assortment.
Yeah, and there are the right value pools. Do we have a right to play? How competitive is that market? So kind of really tick all the boxes before you go for the marriage, because then it's very expensive to get a divorce typically. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's an interesting way of putting it. But I think bank, like you mentioned, credit card partnerships, and we've generally seen, at least in this part of the world as well, that bank partnerships tend to become, the center point of all partnership ecosystems, right? And it's a great value proposition. Like, there's no doubt about the fact that, everyone gets benefited in that. But is that the North Star, or, they are like, you've done insurance, you've done various other partnerships all through your life.
Yeah.
Is banking partnership really the North Star, or, you can still experiment and find value elsewhere?
I mean, banks are a great partner because if I'm looking at from a loyalty engagement perspective, they play a key role in the life of every member. So it's very important, not just for the wallet, for the minds, for the engagements. But typically when we looked at, there is, when we look at partnership, we try to find out, is there that win-win-win? A win for the customers, a win for the loyalty program, and a win for the partner. And that allows to then go and identify what are those verticals where we could establish that. And typically, again, what I've seen working quite well is when we select the partnerships, we will look at partners that they have good margins, and they come quite often from very commoditized industries where there is a clear value that a loyalty proposition can be added on top. That would be one of the criteria, but by all means, there could be different criteria that have been adopted. Some partners that we work with, they were predominantly to drive engagement. So if I'm looking at the airline, we work with groceries because as an airline, you don't have that weekly or daily engagement. So we identify groceries or fuel providers. For us, the play there is to drive that engagement, but also make sure that as with a loyalty program, you try to tap into all those moments of the individual so that they're important to them, so that you're there, you're visible, you drive engagement, but you also drive the share of wallet. Because ultimately, with that approach, you can get more to a lock-in into your ecosystem. So those were some of the key principles that were adopted to identify and develop this type of partnerships at Qantas.
Okay, great. Any pitfalls that you think, like brands who are basically fresh in their journey, what are the common pitfalls that you've seen? Like, where does partnership actually go wrong? What is the red flag?
Okay, that's a good one. I definitely had a few failures. I think one of the typical one that's probably one of my most painful is everything is ready, the product is built, the technology is ready to go, the marketing just need to press a button and it goes, and the contract is not signed. I'm not a big fan of taking that type of risk, but I've seen it happening quite often, where some organizations tend to be quite optimistic. Okay, we'll get the contract signed. So that's one example where, and typically where I see that falling over, if it's not, sometimes it's not even with the commercial and the partner, it might be that, again, the internal engagement with certain stakeholders, being legal, be privacy, being, other parts of the business that maybe at times they don't get engaged earlier on by mistake, you can get beaten there. That is one of the challenges that I face. Otherwise, if I go back, is misalignment on what success looked like. for the partnerships. So if I go to the example that I had before, Qantas Money driving financial well-being, we wanted to give you points and rewards for making the right financial decisions. With a bank, they wanted to make sure that we attract also people that revolve on the credit card. There was a misalignment. So that required a realignment on really what's the purpose of the partnership. Those are some of the key ones that come to mind. And the misalignment between the organizations, as I said, it goes, you can apply and make sure that across every step of the customer journey, you feel that there is a good level of alignment on those expectations. Otherwise, be prepared for either failure or pivots. And we had to do, for example, with the insurance, it wasn't necessarily a challenge per se, but we realized also how we could add additional value to our partners in insurance, and so that led to a reconsideration of the structure of the partnership. So that wasn't a failure, but I think it's an interesting one. We initially had a contract which was all about, they saw Qantas as a lead generation, so it was all about commissions on top of points. To scale the program, the insurance, it took us around 3 to 5 years to really get the right scale. But by that time, we realized that the tenure of our members was way above industry average. So that allowed us to actually renegotiate the construct of the partnership and look at also as the loyalty program, not just as a lead generation channel, acquisition channel type of partnership, but they're really looking at the customer lifetime value and get additional share of the value. Similarly, when we played with regulatory, high regulated industry again, like insurance and financial services, we had a model whereby we used to build the customer experience, and because we knew that we could deliver a better, more differentiated customer experience. So it was basically the banks and the insurers, they give us the API, we build apps and digital channels on top. That played out good from an experience, but then we got beaten back when we faced the cost of regulatory changes. So again, what was the lesson learned there? Play to your strength. Don't try to become a bank or an insurer if you're not ready to take those type of costs, and then you can apply that to other industry. But at the same time, make sure that you can have enough ability to change that experience to ingest a loyalty proposition so that you can stand out. So even a simple example is showing you how many points you're getting and bringing the loyalty experience up in those channels. When we did experiments, we could clearly see and prove to the partner, then with or without, we could show the incrementality as well. So those are some examples of some of the learnings.
No, all great points, Antonio. One thing that we have noticed is, when we were working with the brands is, I think that at times people miss out on this aspect of knowing what is the minimum amount of reward a person can, redeem. Because it's very important for partnerships, or rather partnership to actually deliver value, or for that matter, any initiative to drive value is what is the momentum, and what is the entry barrier for any initiative, right? So I've seen one of the common pitfalls is, at times brands do tend to define a very, very high threshold of when a customer can redeem a reward, which actually probably kills the program, because, you might not ever be able to get there to actually redeem.
So on that, I tend to think that there is actually more of a science than an art.
Yeah.
And that there is elasticity. And, you could get marketers excited. Let's do a 20x campaigns on points. And I've seen it. It's like, take it easy, because we can test. And again, with Qantas, we would achieve, different customer and markets might be different. But what we did there, extensive experimentation. We went very hard, get actuaries to really get to the detail of that. And what we noticed there is that for certain use cases, it wasn't so much the amount of reward compared to in terms of the impact, and we also saw that it would drive. We basically saw kind of a diminishing return after a certain threshold. Like, it is different from case to case, probably from market to market, but what I think, or at least what I've learned, is solid and proper experiments can actually help you move away from throwing up a number and see if it sticks or not. So I think that is quite more of a science than an art, but you need to have the right technology and setup in place to be quite rigorous with those tests.
You also mentioned one interesting point about the business alignment and the internal team alignment, and that is one thing that I also seem to observe quite a bit, where you have one is the business stakeholder and the marketing stakeholder, and then you have a partnership team, right? And their expectation could be very different in terms of the kind of rewards they would want to source, or something that aligns with probably the marketing calendar or whatever the case may be. What would you recommend is, I think, the most civil approach of kind of creating a consensus between the organization in terms of the reward strategy?
I think more the consensus, it's about working as a cross-functional team from the get-go. Yeah, I've been through cases where it was quite waterfall. The partnership team goes, engage the partner, sign the contract, happy days, big celebration, and then you deal with it. Yeah. While what we notice that works much better is right at the beginning of that inception discovery phase, get each of the key representatives involved. So learn about a customer, get the marketing involved, but also technology right up front. That helps to reduce, again, risk of misalignment down the line. Similarly, and again, quite often I've seen that it's as much of a challenge are the internal stakeholders. Again, quite often I see partners and loyalty folks very excited, let's go about do it, and then you get blocked somewhere in the organization. So again, every organization works differently, but I say engage those people in the organization known to be blockers, probably earlier on, make them part of that process, capture their expectations earlier on, and manage them throughout it. Similarly, make sure the key stakeholders, senior stakeholder organization as well, they are engaged throughout the partnership, give the opportunity to get their feedback heard and steer. So do those showcases. Again, don't come with, we signed the deal and now we go and it's fantastic. No, make sure that it can be a little bit more time consuming. It feels like it, but I'd rather spend more time to engage organization as opposed to don't do it, take more risk, and then you get blocked, and in some cases, the partnership doesn't even take off. So I think that's probably one of the key learnings for me.
Like, what is the KPI as a business you would measure to decide? Of course, one is the redemption and all of that stuff, but you would tend to have certain rewards from the marketing standpoint or from the optics standpoint as well. But when do you see, what is the red flag at which you'll say that, okay, I think we need to just redo everything? What are the KPIs that you would generally in your role monitor?
Yeah. So this is I just heard it a couple of weeks from a very senior member of the Aldar group. And it kind of stuck with me. I went there for a business case, all the numbers. It was the first time I'm presenting, so I just joined 2 months ago. I need to make sure that we do a good job. What I love is that this person said, Antonio, the numbers come second. I want to get customer smiles. Focus on getting customer smiles, which was, for me, was eye-opener, and I really like the analogy. But ultimately, we just go back. Loyalty, what is it? It's all about making sure that your customers are coming back to you. Yeah. So that is ultimately, for a successful partnerships, are those members engaging? Are they getting value? That's the first stick. And then everything falls behind, being financials, being engagement. But I think it's really about ultimately that customer. Are you seeing the right customer behavior out of this partnership? And can you really clearly see the happiness, those smiles coming from your customers? I think that is a beautiful North Star that I'm going to keep with me for my time in this organization, because it was very different and refreshing way to look at things.
It's indeed very refreshing. I think, most of the brands that we work with tend to look at the financial aspects of any engagement. But I think customer experience comes first. That is what we also advocate. And it's very refreshing to see that, Aldar is adopting that approach.
And immediately the CFO said, by the way, you're still on the hook for the numbers. Fair enough. So,
Of course.
it's but again, I really like it. It's something that, in my short time at the organization, it really stuck with me.
No, by the way, I mean, congratulations. You just launched the Emirates NBD partnership as well. I think in the very minimum time that you've been in the organization. So again, I mean, again, a great achievement, and I'm sure it's going to benefit a lot. But I think I'll have just two more questions, before we wrap this up. One is, and basically in two parts, are there any rewards that or any kind of rewards that works better than the others? And second is, I mean, you've followed this industry for a very, very long time. What are the recent trends that you are seeing in terms of, the expectations of the customers in terms of, the catalog that you offer or the variety of the offers that you offer? So, I mean, basically two-part question.
So the first question is if there are some rewards better than the other. The answer there is, who are you targeting? Because it could change a lot. So I tend to think that, in the context of a mature loyalty program, you probably have different type of rewards you need to consider. Again, if I'm thinking about my experience at Qantas, we would have the true frequent flyers. So for them, it wasn't so much the free flights, that their value is the status. Yeah? And then you have maybe not so frequent flyers that they really want to use the points for those business class trips. What we see, again, also with new or maybe younger generations, we're starting to see more of an experiential type of reward that resonated with them. We also looked at, so if I'll give you an example, we saw at the time, 2 or 3 years ago, we saw that there was this new tourism trend which was driven by events. The example there was the concept of Taylor Swift, all of Australia, even the media were talking about it. So we looked at building rewards, which was more like a cross-category rewards where you would get tickets plus a stay, a flight, or maybe a discount. So in that case was all right. We identify a new trend that maybe that was affecting a certain cohort. So probably to answer and build a proposition. To answer to your question, it's really about, in a world where we talk about personalization, or at least segmented and cohorts, you might want to have to tackle them in a different way. So that's probably what I start to see. The other thing that we saw, again, it's that time to take your reward. So we started looking at, especially for my airline, it was around 18 months for a first redemption. Retail lifestyle programs is different, but it was about how can we reduce the time, give you those micro rewards. So what we were kind of moving towards is a multitude of rewards, but that they are your traditional points base or experience, but also the size of the timing that it would take in you to take advantage of rewards. So a multitude to reflect the trend around personalization, I'd say. So that was one of the things that we saw.
And what's your view on where is it heading? Like, next 5 years, 10 years, how do you think this whole proposition will change over the period of time?
So one of the things that, and again, if I'm talking from example, one of the things that we wanted to test was challenge the paradigm of wanting to have your member to come to your channels as a loyalty program. So what we did for one of the leading banks in Australia was to build what we call the embedded loyalty solution. You might be familiar with embedded finance. So basically, rather than we build it and let's get them to come to our channel, we said ourselves, these banks, they have, the app in Australia had around 2 million customers, the bank they're around 4, 5, 6, 7. So how about we build an experience there? So we build like a micro version of our app in this bank to say, okay, we're going to be where you are. And so we could ingest a personalized offer there and a bunch of other capabilities. So I think that's an interesting trend to explore when we look at how we can embed loyalty outside of the traditional proprietary channel. That's an interesting one. I mentioned before that going beyond white label and what part of their experience a loyalty program could own and build, that comes with pros and cons that I mentioned before. Other one that I think it's interesting is that shift towards from transactional to experiential loyalty. That's definitely something. Again, it seems to my hypothesis is that it could be quite attractive to also younger generations. And then everybody kind of mention is, how you use data, personalization, that's always going to be there. But we have heard that for more than 20 years. So I think it's always on trend. We just need to get better and better and better. So those are some of the main ones that we learn and more and play with that at least.
Okay. Great. And how do you think like product companies like say Capillary or anyone else, what role do you think they have or they should play in order to kind of fast track this value proposition?
So for me, vendors like Capillary, I see it as just another partner. Yeah, we're working together to try to achieve those goals. What I like, and that's also the experience I had with you guys, is the ability to tackle that. We're not looking at what the platform can do. We're looking at these are the goals, these are the challenges, these are opportunities. So it's about how do you work together on that. And what I really like of the way we've been working is the ability to move, working as a team, but also move with a certain level of agility and co-create. So I think if as a partner you can co-create, be agile, and quite often these tech vendors, they can actually move faster than the large organization. But those are like, co-create, be agile, and take a problem/opportunity approach. I think that sets a foundation for a great partnership.
Great, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That was very insightful, and thank you so much for spending time with us today, Antonio. I'm sure I'll have the privilege to learn a lot more about you, but I guess the audience found the session as meaningful as I did. So thank you so much
for
for
your time,
spending
Siddhant.
time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.